Tackling such a widespread problem requires the efforts of various organizations. One is the Sexual Violence and Adolescent Girls Legal Defense. It's part of Equality Now, an organization advocating human rights for women and girls around the world. And we're joined from New York by Program Manager Christa Stewart. Thanks so much for joining us. Describe for us what your organization is all about, how you work to get these girls who are being exploited by human traffickers.
Equality Now is a human rights organization that focuses particularly on the rights of women and girls, and we link advocacy, legal action, and global activism to make change for women and girls around the world. And sex trafficking has long been a part of our work, as we see it very inextricably linked to gender inequality.
And why are girls in particular so vulnerable, do you think?
And we do see across our work for the past 20 years that adolescence is a really vital time for young women in developing into adults. We do see these rights being violated haphazardly, and adolescent girls are particularly vulnerable to that. That cuts across our work, whether it's in trafficking or other areas such as forced child marriage, forced genital mutilation, and other violations against girls' rights. And it's because they are so critically at this juncture of adulthood and childhood. And it also is compounded by the fact that women are devalued and are not given equal rights to men.
Let me ask you about Jessica's piece we just saw. We saw these sting operations. It appears they're helpful, but what are the challenges that still remain, would you say?
We absolutely appreciate the focus on the perpetrator, and we feel that we need to look at the demand aspect, because beyond that demand is really the human purchase. And those young girls are really vulnerable, and there is that human cost to it that perhaps we're not looking at. The commodification of young girls especially is rampant in sex trafficking. We often hear that buyers are particularly looking for younger girls. So that devaluing actually is much more aimed to the younger population. And while the law enforcement actions are, of course, we believe need to be focused on the perpetrator, we do believe that services do need to go hand in hand with that. We're very happy about the FBI sort of pairing those law enforcement actions with victim services because we feel that people that are caught up in prostitution should not be re-victimized or criminalized. We believe that that equation should be changed and that the perpetrator be held accountable.
Well, you talked about the perpetrator. Convictions, though, for human trafficking, very rare around the world. Why do you think that is, and what can be done to stop that?
You're right. Unfortunately, there are very low numbers, and that is really because human trafficking is a very underground crime. The tactics that are used by traffickers are very similar to what are used in domestic violence. There are very often brutal physical tactics, but often very subtle psychological coercion that's going on, which makes the victim very afraid to come forward and report what's going on, let alone having any interaction with the outside world. So we know that they're trapped in this horrible cycle, and that asking for help can put them at further danger.
Escaping that cycle is not easy. Christa Stewart doing her part. Thanks so much for joining us from New York.